What if I told you there is a miracle plant that is super nutritious, easy to grow, you can consume nearly every single part of it, it can purify water? Would you be interested? Well, stay tuned and we're going to tell you all about this plant.
It's a tree of life.
Welcome to the Southern Homestead Podcast.
I'm Barbie.
And I'm Chuck. And join us as we discuss all things homesteading in zones 9A and B. We usually say in the South, but that could be anywhere. Well, not anywhere. It could be different parts of the country.
Yep. Today we're going to talk about Moringa, also known as the tree of life, and why you should be growing this miracle plant. I'm going to cover a couple of things. First, the benefits of this plant, where you can grow the plant, what you need to know about growing from seed, how to propagate from cuttings, and finally, how to consume moringa.
I like the last part best, consuming it.
Yes.
It's one of my secret ingredients in my hot sauce. That's why nobody can exactly replicate my hot sauce, because you got to grow moringa.
This is true.
Well, you could buy powdered moringa, but it was not the same as fresh. So moringa is a miracle plant, and this wonderful plant has been around for thousands of years. It's actually native from northern India, so it likes tropical and subtropical climates. Luckily here in central Florida, zones 9A and B, we are considered subtropical. We just learned that in our master gardening class.
Yes.
Miami's considered tropical, and northern Florida is considered, what was northern Florida considered? Temperate.
I don't remember.
I think it was temperate. Yeah, I think it was temperate. But the good news is, you're probably thinking, well, Chuck, I don't live in Central Florida. I live in Boise, Idaho. I live in Dayton, Ohio.
Not a problem, as long as you can control the temperature.
There you go. That's it. You can take steps to mitigate the freezing temperature so it doesn't get below 60 degrees, and you can still grow this plant. Mm-hmm. And you really do want to grow this plant. And the reason you want to grow this plant is because I've witnessed firsthand, number one, how this thing is nearly indestructible.
Yes. Kind
of short story real quick. I like growing them from seeds, and I had a couple growing, and I had them out in the front porch, and I had one plant that was probably about 4 feet tall.
Yeah, it was doing really well.
Yeah. And we had ordered, we live in the country, so we order everything through Amazon, including dog food. Mm-hmm. And I brought some dog food up from the front gate and set it down on the porch. And I guess I didn't set it down exactly level, and it kind of fell over, and it snapped that 4-foot moringa tree.
Yep.
And I was mad. I was ticked off. And I literally picked up the tree, stuck it in the pot. I was so mad, and I was just thinking, I'll take care of it later. And I carried the dog food inside and promptly forgot about it.
Yep.
And guess what? It never died. It just grew on. And then I had
re-rooted.
It re-rooted. I had to. So it is like a nearly indestructible plant. So if you're new with the gardening and you get easily frustrated because you kill plants easily, learn how to grow moringas, because they are very good for beginners. Mm-hmm. And another good thing about them is they grow really, really fast. Because there's a lot of plants that, for example, we have some fruit trees that we purchased 3 or 4 years ago. And they grow really slow. Literally in one season, they grow like 2 inches.
If that.
Yeah. So the moringas, it is not unusual for those things to grow between, I'd say, so typically in one season, it can grow between 10 and 25 or 30 feet.
Yeah.
Because we cut ours back to the ground every winter.
Well, we leave ours outside, so they kind of die off after we harvest. We harvest what we want to harvest from them, and then they kind of die off.
Yeah, I cut them a couple inches above the ground.
But they come back the next year.
Yeah, I cut them a couple inches above ground, and then I cover that up with mulch to protect it from the 2 or 3 freezing days a year that we have. And then by the end of the growing season...
In southern Florida, though, they can get pretty big.
Oh, yeah. And by the end of the growing season, they are easily 30 feet tall. Mm-hmm. So each year they grow 30 feet tall. So you can literally, when they hit the growing spell, when you walk down and you check on, well, not down there. For us, it's down there, wherever you're growing it on your property. But when you go out and look at it every day, you can literally see, oh my God, it's grown that much in just one day. So it gives you that instant gratification. So it's nearly indestructible and gives you instant gratification because it grows super fast in the growing season. So like I said, it's nearly the most perfect plant for new beginners.
Yeah, and it's called the tree of life or a miracle plant for several reasons, but mainly because of the health benefits that it has. This plant, in one leaf, one group of leaves when you take it off, has 7 times more vitamin C than oranges. It has 4 times more vitamin A than carrots, 4 times more calcium than milk, and 3 times more potassium than bananas. So there's a big, powerful punch in those little leaves. And I believe we heard or read somewhere when we were learning about moringa that they actually grow it in third world countries that have warmer climates in order to provide healthy food.
Right. And Barbie mentioned consuming the leaves, but you can consume the bark.
Yes.
You can consume the seed pods.
The roots.
You can consume the roots. Every part of this plant is edible.
Yeah.
And that's the beautiful thing about it. And it grows so fast, and so it's an easily, I almost said repeatable resource, but that's not the word I was looking for. It's a resource it's constantly there. There was actually when I was doing the research for this podcast, there's actually a study that came out in 2014 in the Journal of Food Science and Technology, and it found that consuming just 1.5 teaspoons of moringa powder every day for 3 months significantly increased the antioxidant levels within the blood. Now, moringa leaves are 25% protein, and they contain all 9 essential amino acids. So it's a great source for fiber and plant-based iron. So it's a really good plant to have.
Yeah.
It really is. There's also, it has an ORAC value, that's ORAC, of 157,000. Now, I actually had to go look that up because I didn't know what ORAC was, because, I'm still new to the whole thing. I just know this thing grows. So ORAC stands for oxygen radical absorbance capacity. It's a scientific test that measures the total antioxidant capacity of a plant. And they test different types of plants and they give it a rating. They put a sample of it in a test tube, and then the molecules generate free radical activity, and it can interact with other molecules that are vulnerable to oxidation. So the higher the number, the better the plant, right?
What kind of plants have good numbers, I guess?
Okay, so everybody knows blueberries, right? Blueberries are really good antioxidant. And there's actually a difference between store-bought blueberries and wild blueberries. So a store-bought blueberry has a ORAC value of 4,669. Wild blueberries has an ORAC value of 9,600. So it's almost double.
Wow.
Almost double. If you just kind of shows you, because we try to.
Nature has it right.
She absolutely does have it right, and then we humans mess it up. But here's the thing: moringa has an ORAC value of 157,000. It's how much better than it is than blueberries. So moringa has also been scientifically proven to be able to clarify water. So you mentioned third world countries, and it's an easy plant to grow to help people feed people, but it can also clarify water. So that's why so many survivalists love the moringa plant, right? Because you can consume all of it. It grows really fast, and you can clarify water.
How does it clarify the water?
So there was Chuck did some more research. I always call Barbie my research queen, but this time Chuck was the research king. And so there was a published paper in the Journal of Current Protocols in Microbiology done by Michael Lay. And he did a study and he titled it Safe Water International. And it showed that basically moringa seeds reduce the muddiness in water by up to, ready for this, between 80 and 99.5%, and cut the bacteria by as much as 99%.
Wow.
So you don't need a super expensive Berkey like we have sitting on the thing.
Just plant some moringa.
Just plant some moringas.
Keep the seeds.
Yeah, exactly. So growing moringa, you do have options, right? So you can grow them from seed, you can grow them from cuttings, you can buy them already started somewhere. That's how we actually got into it initially.
Yeah, our
we,
first one we bought from Land of Delight.
Land
over
of
in
Delight.
Plant
Yeah,
City.
exactly. Because they had them growing like shrubs. I like doing them from seeds personally, but that's just me. And when you do them from seeds, just make sure you buy them from a reputable source. And when I say that is because when you buy seeds, especially offline, is everybody and their brother can have an Amazon account, so you want to make sure you get good seeds. So when you get the seeds, and also make sure you get organic, right? So what you do is when you go to plant them, you're going to find that you have about an 80% germination rate. Germination means when you start the seed, 80% of them
will grow.
Will grow, exactly. Sorry about that. I had a hiccup. And I don't know. I don't have enough knowledge to compare that to other seeds because I've never paid attention to other seeds we've started. But to me, 80% seems kind of high.
Yeah, I mean, just from planting seeds in the garden, when I do seed starting, 80% is pretty good.
Right. So when you start them from seed, what we like to do, and I watched many YouTube videos, and there's a couple of different methods, but the method that really seems to work for us is we have a whole bunch of these containers floating around the house. And they're containers from like the salads that we buy from Wendy's
yeah.
and stuff. So there's a 2-part container. The bottom part is black and the top part is clear. It doesn't really matter if they're clear or what color because you're putting them in a dark area anyway.
Even some of the containers you get from the grocery store in the salad section you could use.
Absolutely. Matter of fact, I was just thinking tonight while we were on that Zoom call, I was thinking, I'm sitting there eating the chocolate-covered almonds, and I looked at the container. I was like, hey, that's perfect moringa one because it's
Definitely.
tall. It's tall, right? That's one of the drawbacks of using the salad ones. They're not as tall. So what you basically do is you take one of those, you get out a wet paper towel, and you make sure that when you wet it, that it's, I don't know how to describe this. You don't want it barely wet, and you don't want it so wet that it drips, but you want it so it's wet, if that makes sense.
You don't want to wring it out.
No, you don't want to wring it out.
But you don't want it sitting in water either, because then it could mold.
Right. So what I do is I typically get 2 pieces of paper towel. I wet both of them. Well, actually, I wet the first one, and then I put my seeds on top of that wet paper towel, and I spread them out. Now, in a not seed container, but a salad container, I've had up to about 20 seeds in one of those.
And we do this inside, so it's in a controlled environment.
Yes. Yeah, I'll explain it here in just a second. Absolutely. And then I wet the second paper towel. I put that on top of it. And then I put the lid on it because they like a really humid kind of environment, which is another reason why they make it really good for Florida. Yeah. So then once you got that sealed off, you put that in a dark place. Right. So what I do in our house is I put it on top of the refrigerator and slide it towards the back.
Because we have a shelf.
Because we have a shelf that covers it up. Right. And the reason it's got to be dark is because if you put it like on a windowsill, the sun could actually dry up the moisture. So it's going to be in a dark place. And you leave it there. The videos I watch, they say 7 days. But, it's 1 to 2 weeks. The longer you let it go, the taller the seedlings will be when you go to transplant them. But you could run into an issue if you let them go too long. If you're using the salad container, is they're not tall enough, and it hits the top, and then they start kind of bending over. So 7 to 10 days, depending on the size of your thing, and you can experiment with them because you can buy a package of 100 moringa seeds for $8. I bought our moringa seeds 3 seasons ago, and I still have seeds that I haven't started yet. So the Moringa Oleifera, which is the most common one that people know about, is the ones that we're growing right now, and they're tall and they're what's a good word for it?
They're very lanky.
Lanky, yes, exactly. It's
like a single main stalk that goes up, and then the shoots come off of it.
It's not like a filled out bush like a cranberry hibiscus. No. If you let a cranberry hibiscus go, it will grow into about 4 feet tall and about 8 feet wide, a big huge bush. The Oleifera plant, it'll grow tall and lanky, but there is another variant of the moringa that I bought the seeds for. I just haven't, this season I'm trying them. I can't remember the name off the top of my head. It's not supposed to grow as tall as the Oleifera.
It's more bush-like.
Exactly, and it's supposed to bush out more. So I want to try that because if you have the Oleifera, you can make it bush out. So once they start growing and it gets to whatever height that you want it at, say 4 feet or 5 feet or 6 feet, you cut the top. Exactly, you cut the top of it, and then it forces the lower branches to bush out. So that's how Land of Delay did, the place that we bought our original moringa plants from.
So what do you do after those seedlings come up?
Two things. It depends on what I've got going on at the time. If there's open spots in our aquaponics, I will put it in there. But a lot of people don't have aquaponics systems.
Right.
I like the aquaponics because it makes them almost maintenance free because you don't have to water them. And we said earlier about how it likes to clarify water. So it helps the aquaponics system stay clean. But you can also put them in just a regular flower pot like you do any other seed. Just like with any other plant, when you first transplant it, don't put it out in direct sunlight because you will kill it. It's got to be in...
No, you have to harden it off.
Harden it off, yeah. It's got to be in, like what my wife likes to say, dappled light. Yeah, you got to harden it off. And then, so typically what we'll do is we'll put it, like, for example, on the back porch. We have I don't know what you would call that thing, that square thing that's got it's not a canopy. What is it? The table's under.
It's kind of a canopy.
Yeah, it's like a gazebo, but it's made out of fabric, but not
a fabric gazebo.
It's the kind you see in a big box store when you're walking around and they got to move in the outside modular furniture. I'm thinking work now. The outside patio stuff, right? Yeah. The gardening stuff. So they always have that 4-post kind of like gazebo kind of thing with the fabric top. That's what it is. So we'll put it out there and we'll let it sit there for a week or two to harden off. And then you'll move it out to where you're going to finally place it. But you can also do it from cuttings.
And we've had good success with that.
Yes, we have.
I mean, the one that you broke.
Yeah, that's a perfect example. Yeah. Now, I'm struggling with, and I've been growing moringas now for 3 years. I have a buddy of mine on the Zello channel. Hi, PA, if you're listening. I don't know if he listens or not. He keeps saying to me, Chuck, send me 10 pounds of moringa powder. I'm like, yeah, I don't have that many moringas yet. Because I do grow them, but I haven't really focused on growing them as a crop. I'm still kind of playing and experimenting and stuff like that. But so I'm still, when it comes from cuttings, so I've experimented different ways. I've experimented when I cut them. I've tried different lengths. I've tried cutting them when the diameters were different sizes and stuff. And to me, it seems like the thicker in diameter, the better chance, the more energy it has to grow into a thing. But it seems to me about 1 inch is the sweet spot. But it also has to be not only just 1 inch, it needs to be kind of long.
Yeah.
Now initially I'm cutting them at 1 inch and they're probably about a foot and a half long, and I'm putting them down pretty down. And the floor's got sandy soil. Sandy soil loves to drain water. Moringas like that, but they also like wet soil too. So it doesn't seem to be quite long enough. Now, I did find an article that said that, yes, it needs to be a 1 inch, but they should also be 6 feet long. So I'm going to try that in the next batch. The ones we got down there now.
But even the ones that have been like 2 or 3 feet out, which, I mean, they are longer because you're having to bury part of it. So even those have come out.
Not all of them, though. Because down in the garden area, we did that whole triangle thing with the moringas.
Yeah.
And of the ones that I put in the ground, only 2 or 3 of them actually grew. Most of them died.
I've noticed, though, that sometimes they don't come out the first year. But if you leave it there, the next year you'll start getting sprouts from it. But
also, too, you can tell if it's not going to grow if after it's been in the ground for a significant time. And by significant time, I mean 6 months, 8 months, 9 months, something like that. If you go over and you just kind of grab the stem, if it pulls out of the ground super easy,
there's no roots.
It is it's dead. So I want to try that this year. So when we have 3 or 4 down there that are going on their 3rd or 4th season now, so the roots form got to be really good. So when we cut those this year, I'm going to do them in 6-foot sections, and I'm going to see if that helps them. And because up in our food forest area, we have 6, 8, 9 moringas up there that we transplant from this year, and they're all doing that. They're all literally about a foot and a half tall. They're struggling.
They are struggling, but they're green and they're growing. So,
and I think that's part of because I didn't cut them 6 feet long. They were 1 inch in diameter, but they weren't 6 feet long.
Yeah.
Right. So when you plant them, you really want to make sure that you have a nice size hole. So you want to make sure that hole is, 3 feet wide by 3 feet deep. And I was reading an article on transplanting plants and stuff, and it says, why do you go out and spend $10, $15 on a plant and then put it in a 50-cent hole? Right? So what they mean by that is, don't just dig a hole and throw it in there. Make that hole nice and inviting to roots. So when you dig it, make sure that you take your shovel or whatever and you break up the ground and put some good planting soil, compost in there. And
organic matter, because especially here in Florida, because most of our soil is just sand.
Right.
So it needs that organic matter to help hold in the moisture and covers the drainage part.
Right. So when you fill it up, you want to make sure that a lot of plants, or not a lot, but some plants, when you transplant them, you don't come all the way up to the ground level. With this one, you actually have to go past the ground level and kind of make like a hill.
Mm-hmm. Plant it high.
Plant it high, exactly right. So you want to plant it high, and then that helps with the whole draining thing. And then you want to make sure, especially when you first plant it, that so you want to water generously, but you don't want to make sure that cutting is drowning in water. So it's best that the water doesn't actually touch the stem of a new tree. So you want to kind of water it around it.
So the last thing we're going to talk about is how to consume moringa. Like Chuck mentioned, every part of the moringa tree is edible. The leaves, the pods, the seeds, flowers, even the roots. Most commonly, I think you're going to find it, if you find it like in a store or something like that, or online, it's going to be in a powdered form. And that powdered form, you can use that, to add to smoothies, dips, lattes, things like that. We do pick them fresh and add them to salads. I've added them into soups and eggs.
Yeah, we put them
in
eggs.
It's really good in eggs. Moringa has kind of a horseradish, peppery kind of taste. A milder, though. It's a lot milder.
I've always described it as a peppery kind of taste, but horseradish makes sense too.
Yeah. So it adds a little bit of spice to whatever you're cooking. You can put it in sauces. I've added it to spaghetti sauce before. So this year we're trying something new. We're doing more food storage this year. So I'm actually dehydrating them. And I haven't dehydrated any in the dehydrator yet, but I have this hanging.
Looks like a material castle.
Yeah,
it's got like 5 or 6 levels inside.
It's got different levels, and they're kind of mesh. So I went out and harvested a whole bunch and laid it out single. First, I cleaned it, soaked it in water, laid it out on paper towels, let it dry, and then moved it to the dryer so that it can completely dehydrate. And after that, then you just basically pull off the leaves from the stems and put them into some sort of container. We have ours in a jar that's resealable so that we can use it in cooking. I did find out a neat tip from someone I watch. Her name's Melissa. I can't remember her last name right now, but she does a lot of herbs and dehydrating everything. When you're dehydrating herbs, and moringa I would consider kind of an herb, you don't want to crush them immediately, because that releases, when you crush it, it releases the essential oils that are in it, and that's where all the flavor comes from. So as I'm taking them off of the stems, I'm trying to leave the little leaves whole. And then when we get ready to cook, they are dry, so I can just crumble them up in whatever soup or whatever dish we're using them in.
Another thing that a lot of people don't really know about is goats love moringa.
Yes, they do.
Ask me how I know that.
We accidentally found that out.
Yeah. So we have an area that we have electric fencing that we put up to rotate the pastures for the goats. There's an area back by our moringas, and we had it separated.
Yes.
And evidently it's so good that they decided they'll accept getting zapped by the electric fencing to eat some of that nutritious
Pulled it
moringa.
right over to the ground.
And the one they pulled over to the ground is still growing.
Yes, it is.
It's still growing. So you can feed it to your chickens. You can feed it to ducks, geese. It's good for lots of things. So if you haven't tried the moringa plant, try it and shoot us an email. Let us know how it worked out for you. I think you can find in most of the places you're going to have a fun time growing it.
And if you don't top them, you can actually collect seed your own seed from them, because
Oh, yeah.
if you let a few of them go to seed, they create these really long pods, and then just let the pods dry, and you can harvest the seed to plant your next batch. But they come back every year, so at least here in Zone 9.
Right.
Are we 9A? 9A.
Yeah, we're 9A. I used to say we're 9B, but we're actually 9A. And if you live up north, like I said, but you're thinking, Chuck, because it doesn't like temperatures below 60 degrees.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're living in an area of the country that has those kind of temperatures, then, grow them in, like the 20-gallon pots.
So you can bring them inside.
So you can bring them inside. Exactly right. That way, when it's cold outside, or if you have the ability to put it in like a greenhouse or put a cloth over it or something like that. If you have winter and you're 30 below for months at a time, you're going to want to bring that thing in. It doesn't like below 60 degrees. But you can do it. I have friends who live up north that do grow moringa. They're not as successful as living in a subtropical or tropical climate. So I hope you learned a new plant to try. And
the tree of life.
The tree of life. So until next time.
Live your own story. So y'all come back now, you hear? Come back now, you hear? Come back now, you hear?